This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
नमस्कार, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one of its kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information, and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago, and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sfurti, shakti, and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
तो नमस्कार, आदाब, सत श्री अकाल, वड़क्कम, वेलकम. आप सभी का भारत एफएम के इस कार्यक्रम में, जिसका के नाम है रूबरू, में तहे दिल से स्वागत है. और मैं हूं आपका दोस्त और आपका होस्ट आशीष झा. So folks, before we invite our guest today, let's talk a little bit about him. While there are many books written about Vedic literature, focus of our topic today is much different. Our focus is not around religion or even spirituality. We will focus on scientific aspects described in one of the Vedic hymns called Purusha Sukta. We always hear that the Vedic scriptures are full of knowledge, but there is little effort made to understand and share the scientific knowledge in the literature. Any Vedic text can be interpreted in many ways. Religious and spiritual interpretations are most common. But understanding science behind these texts gives us a different level of joy. And our guest today, Parag Bhalerao. Let's talk about him a little bit. He was born and raised in Pune. He currently lives in Philadelphia, as you can see, working in IT industry. Parag holds master's degree in science and MBA in HR and marketing. Since childhood, Parag is fascinated by spirituality. Inspired by various writings of Dr. P.V. Vartak, Parag took an initiative to explore scientific knowledge in various sculptures. So, with that, let's welcome Parag Bhalerao from Philadelphia, USA. Hi,
Good
Parag.
morning.
Good
Good to see you,
morning. Good
Ashish.
morning. Welcome to our show on Rubaru on Bharat FM. And we are extremely honored to have you on our show, that you had taken some time out on this wonderful day today. And we are going to talk about your book, Purusha Sukta. So thank you very much for that.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. I'm equally excited, Ashish. I have been watching Bharat FM, Bharat TV, various programs that you organize, the wonderful audience that you have, and it's really exciting to be part of that team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Parag. So begin from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your initial days. I mean, your childhood days. Where were you born? How was your childhood? A little bit about that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was born in Pune, which is in Maharashtra, and back then Pune was not like a metro city. It was a big city, but not a metro city, and it was very culturally preserved kind of area. So I was fortunate to be born there, grew up there, was very attached to our culture, our scriptures, history, and so on. And since childhood, I was always involved in various social activities, local festivals or anything. Very active on the stage and drama and music back then. And as I was growing up, I was watching various rituals, various religious activities, scriptures, the daily chantings that we do, and so on. And I was always curious, why do we do this? what is the real meaning behind this? Yes, one is religious aspect, but what is there has to be something beyond that. And I was very curious about that since beginning. Did not get much chance to explore that back then, but as I grew up, that curiosity still remained in my mind. And few years back, I came across some writings of Dr. Vartak, and that gave me little different spark inside me, which helped me explore and find more details about various practical and scientific aspects.
So, how did you come to know about Dr. Vartak?
It was an accident actually. So here in US, I was visiting a friend, and his father had a book by Vartak, and the title said something similar, scientific analysis of one of the Upanishads. So I was very curious. So this is what I wanted. So I picked up that book, read it a little bit sitting there. Then I ordered my own copies. Then I went to Pune once. That time I got an opportunity to meet Dr. Vartak, and I pretty much picked everything that he printed or he said, and studied a lot of things from him.
So, so tell us a little bit about what is that book about, and how is it different from your book?
Oh, that book that I came across was about one of the Upanishads,
Okay,
whereas the one I have written is about one of the Vedic hymns called Purusha Sukta.
okay. So the topics are totally different in both the books. The thought
Correct,
process might be
correct.
the same, but the topics are completely different.
Very, very true. Yep.
Okay. So finding all these details about the Vedic hymns, uh, how much work did you have to do on that, and what kind of work did you do? What kind of research did you?
Very good question. Um, so again, while chanting Purusha Sukta once, something occurred to me that hey, this has some very interesting and great meaning.
Now,
And
before you move forward, I just want to understand for our audience as well, what does Purusha Sukta means?
okay, okay, so let's talk about that. So Purusha Sukta is one of the sukta in Vedic literature, and this is the only sukta, Ashish, that comes in every single Ved. In all four Veds, there are minor variations, but the entire sukta is there in every Ved, and it is that important. Many of us may not realize or know, but most of the pujas that we do at home, including Satyanarayan, including Ganpati Pratisthapana, including any other pujas, Shodashopachar puja that we call, that puja is based on mantras that are there in Purusha Sukta.
I see.
Yeah, most of the pujas follow Purusha Sukta. There are some that follow Shri Sukta also, but typically Purusha Sukta. So, and it is believed by our all the pundits, everybody, that Purusha Sukta talks about creation of universe.
I see.
And
Okay.
then I pretty much watched every video that is available on YouTube. I read, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 books about Purusha Sukta. But this very specific aspect of how it relates to creation of universe was not very clearly mentioned. Lot of
Okay.
books elaborately talked about religious aspects or spiritual aspects and how the god is great and things like that, which is all true, but it did not clearly told you that this is how the universe was created.
Hmm.
And as I started digging deep into it, it took about 3 years for me to complete the book, and I wrote commentary on 16 mantras.
Okay.
So I spent significant amount of time, and the time really went because I read multiple commentaries without being biased to interpret those mantras in the context of creation, not in
Okay.
general context, but the creation context. And I was going through these mantras and understanding those. I realized that many Sanskrit words have multiple meanings, and
Hmm.
there are words that have maybe up to 20 different meanings.
Hmm.
And when we read those, when we interpret those, it is important that we take the meaning which is relevant to the context that we are studying.
Right.
And in this case, the context was creation of universe. So I should not focus on generic meanings or most common meanings or most popular meanings, but what, so I have to fit that multiple meanings in that mantra in my interpretation and see which one really makes sense in that context
Oh,
and
I
then
see.
decode it
So the
further.
same mantra can have different meanings.
Same mantra can have different interpretations, but
I see.
individual words can have different meanings.
I see. Okay. Okay. So basically, when you were doing your research about understanding the creation of the universe, uh, you gathered all that you have researched, all the evidences that has been put over there on the social media, and then you try to connect that to all the different stotras and the mantras that we have on which basically, as you said, that it can be interpreted in a different way, but then you were trying to interpret from the point of view of creation of the universe.
That's correct. And I'll give you a
Okay.
simple example of that. There is a mantra which literally says that a pashu or an animal was sacrificed in the yajna, in the oblation. Now, if you read that mantra and the sequence and the position of that mantra comes even before the life was created.
Acha.
And then there are a lot of, every interpretation says that yes, there was a animal that was sacrificed, and then some of them try to justify why Hindu rituals don't talk about animal sacrifice and things like that. But when I was reading, I said, if the animal or the life is not even created yet, how can you sacrifice an animal? Where did that
Right.
animal come from?
Right.
Right, it didn't exist, even the earth didn't exist. So
Right.
what does this mean? So then I had to go deeper and understand what pashu really means. The word used is pashu,
Okay.
what yajna really means, and then tie that back together to make the right interpretation.
And what is that?
So pashu has one of the meanings is atma or the soul,
I see.
and yajna or sacrifice or oblation has a very different meaning than conventional meaning.
Okay.
Conventionally we think that okay, when I offer something, especially animal, I have to kill that animal and offer some parts or blood or some weird things like that. Whereas yajna is really a process of transformation.
Hmm.
You offer something, do that process, and you get some different output that you
Okay.
desire or that process will generate. That process of conversion or transformation is called yajna.
Hmm.
So
I see.
yeah, so in that context, again, if we understand, then everything makes wonderful sense.
Okay. So how did you pick the mantras that you actually wanted to connect to the creation of the universe? Because there are so many mantras, right? So did you go through each one of them? It's not possible to go through each one of them, right?
Yeah, so that is why I picked Purusha Sukta. That Sukta itself has
Oh,
16
that.
basic mantra and then some Falashruti mantras.
Oh, okay, okay. So can you just say one of the mantra in Purusha Sukta?
Sure, and if you want, I can share it on the screen
Of
so
course.
audience can
Please
relate to
go
it.
ahead. Please go ahead. I will put it over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the very first mantra, and I will read it, not really chant it, for
Okay.
simplicity of understanding. So it
Okay.
says Sahasra Shirsha Purushah Sahasrakshah Sahasrapat Sa Bhumim Vishvato Vritva Atyatishthad Dashangulam. And again, just to help us understand how to interpret different things, what
Mm-hmm.
this literally means is there is a being, and you can call it a god, you can call it a person, whatever, who has 1,000 heads and
Mm.
1,000 eyes and 1,000 legs, and he covers the entire universe and extends beyond the universe by 10 fingers or 10 inches.
Oh.
Now, when I interpreted this, when I tried to understand, first of all, I thought, how can I envision a being, a person, or a animal, or anything has 1,000 heads? If I say it has 1,000 heads, how can it have only 1,000 eyes?
Hmm.
If I say 1,000 heads, it should have 2,000 eyes and
Right.
2,000 legs,
Yeah.
right? So all those things. So if we start questioning why the rishis have said such things, why they use this specific word and what not, why not other word, a lot of things will uncover. So
Hmm.
here, this Sahasra Shirsha Purusha clearly talks about the Big Bang,
I
the
see.
explosion that happened in Big Bang. So what
Okay.
happens is when you look at the Big Bang, imagine you light a firecracker,
Hmm.
right? The cracker blasts, and what happens is thousands of sparks come out
Hmm.
of it, and they start moving out. Now that is the situation. That was the kind of scenario at the time of Big Bang, and that is what is described here. It says
Okay.
Sahasra Shirsha. Shirsha is individuality,
I
right?
see.
We even today we use words like per head,
Right.
right?
Per
Or
head.
in
Yeah.
a
We use per head. Yeah.
right in a meeting we say, oh, there were 100 heads. That means
Yes.
there are 100 individual, unique, distinct people.
Mm-hmm.
So the Shirsha indicates individuality or uniqueness.
Okay.
So it says that there were these thousands of unique objects that got created.
Okay.
Then it uses the word aksha, which is eye. Eye indicates luster or shine,
Oh, okay.
right? So these objects were shining objects. They were bright.
Hmm.
And legs indicate motion
Hmm.
or movement, right? So these objects were moving. Since they were created out of a blast, they were moving outside, away from the
Hmm.
blast. So that scenario, that situation is described in that first line,
Hmm.
and which exactly what the modern Big Bang theory says,
Right.
right? Of course, in Purusha Sukta, it doesn't talk about previous aspects, like how that blast really happened, what happened before that. That comes in few other suktas, but here it talks from Big Bang onwards.
Okay.
Right? And then it says Sabhumim Vishwato Vrutva. So it covers entire universe. Now that is also very logical. If I see a blast, then that blast has to happen somewhere.
Hmm.
There has to be some space.
Hmm.
Space is the word that we use for our understanding, but some space in which all these things can occur.
Right.
Right? And that space itself is this Purusha who provides that space for the entire universe to be formed and to keep on growing. And of course, it provides that space. That means it is covering that entire universe. And if it is covering that universe, it has to be beyond that universe also.
Ah. Right.
Right?
Correct. Interesting. Very interesting. So, how many mantras are there in Purusha Sukta?
Purusha Sukta, as I said, base mantras are 16, which I have covered in my book. And then there are some Falashruti type of mantras.
Oh, okay. I see. And how many mantras do you have in your slide today?
I have 16 slides, one for each. So again, we may or may not go through entire 16 slides, but I have it
Okay.
handy.
Okay. Uh, so, yeah, I mean, if we have time, I would love to see the 16 slides.
Sure.
Unless you have very specific slides and there's a reason behind why you want to discuss those slides, then I would rather go with those slides first and then
Sure.
come back to the ones that we missed out. So, I
So
will let
let's
you decide which one.
yeah. So let cover some background aspects.
Okay.
This sukta comes in Ved. Now, most of us, Ashishji, including me, a few years back, thought Ved is a religious book for Hindus,
Right.
right? But what does Ved means? Ved comes from a root word, Vid. Ved means to know, and Ved means knowledge.
Hmm.
So Ved is nothing but books of knowledge.
I see.
What kind of knowledge? You talk about astrology, astronomy, agriculture, politics, uh,
Anything.
anything, civil, anything. Every single aspect that we think about today is described, written very clearly in some way somewhere. Of course, there are a lot of modern theories. Those are also phenomenal. I'm not saying that, but basically, it's not a religious book. It doesn't talk about any religion. It is purely a knowledge.
Hmm.
Now, as we understand different words, how misinterpretation leads to confusion.
Hmm.
So if you see the lower portion of this slide where I have couple of letters in red. So this entire sukta talks about the universe created by Purusha.
Hmm.
In common language, we say Purusha is male human
Male.
being,
Right.
right? And then there is a criticism that it's a male dominated society. You talk about male every time, all those kind of things.
Right.
Whereas here, Purusha has nothing to do with male or female, or even humans, or any animal for that matter. It
Hmm.
just represents a power or a energy.
Hmm.
Now, if you look at how people interpret word Purusha, most people have interpreted it as the first bullet that I have said, Puri Shayanath or Puri Shete,
Hmm.
and that is how they interpreted Purusha.
Hmm.
Now, when I was reading that, I realized two things, that in Devanagari script, there are two similar sounding alphabets, Sh and Sh,
Hmm.
right? And if you want to relate it, the Sh we use in Shiva or Shankar versus Sh that we use in
Yes.
Krishna, right?
Correct.
Those are two different Shs. The
Absolutely.
word used in Purusha is Sh used in Krishna.
Right.
Whereas if you interpret it as Puri Shayanath or Puri Shete, then that Sh becomes Sh in Shiva or
Okay.
Shankar.
Right.
And with that, if people say Puri Shayanath means one who sleeps in the entire universe. Now, if
I
he
see.
sleeps, that energy, that power sleeps in the universe, it won't be active. It won't contribute anything towards creation of the universe.
Hmm.
So by interpreting wrong alphabet, you
Right.
completely take
Change
out
the
the
meaning.
right
Yeah.
meaning.
Absolutely. Right.
Now, if you take right Sha, which is from Krishna, then that Sha, Pura and Usha, that is Purusha. So Pura means different again in different context. It has different meanings. It can mean a city, it can mean universe, it can mean galaxy, it can even mean human body, depending on the context. So again, so Pura is this universe, and Usha is similar word as Usha, which we use for early morning,
Correct.
dawn, right?
Right.
Which kind of energizes our world, which
Right.
provides energy, which brightens our day and activates our day. So the one that activates, energizes the entire universe, that is Purusha. That energy, that Shakti, that power is Purusha. And
Hmm.
through that energy, everything got created. So that
Hmm.
is how that whole context comes.
I see. I'm just curious. You have one question over here. What is sukta, mantra versus shloka? Uh, I'm curious to know the difference between them.
Okay. So most of the things that we chant, uh, and I'll take Bhagavad Gita as an example, the uh, verses in Bhagavad Gita are called shlok. Now, shlok do follow certain rules and patterns, but how you chant that shlok, there is no specific rule for that.
Hmm.
Okay, and only thing is, of course, you need to pronounce the words properly and so on. But mantra has something called intonation. So if I go back to one of the mantras, I will tell you how the difference is. So if you
Okay.
see the first letter sir, it has underline.
Yes.
Sir has a dash on top of it, right?
Yes.
So that indicates intonation. So in some or different words in different mantra, you have to either chant it or say it in lower tone or higher
I see.
tone or normal tone or stretched tone.
So how
So
does the tone make a difference?
right. So when I said Sahasra Shirsha Purusha, that is how I read it. But when you chant, it will be Sahasra Shirsha Purusha. So that is how that chanting goes. And
I
that
see.
needs to be followed when we are chanting mantra. There is
I
no
see.
such mandatory rule when you chant shlok.
Sure. I
Many
see.
shloks don't even have intonations.
Interesting. Okay. But is there any reason behind chanting mantras that way? Like, why are they stressing on certain letters?
Right. So there are two reasons. One is kind of practical reason is when you chant those mantras in that specific way, it gives you breathing exercise.
Oh,
That is
okay.
one aspect. But the real aspect, I believe, again, if you ask 100 people, they have different interpretations, and all of those are right.
Hmm.
Right? It is intended that you interpret with open
The way
mind,
you, the way that it works for
you
you, right?
perceive exactly. But the other aspect also is, um, if you see one of the slides, I have mentioned that all these Ved are apaurushaya, the third bullet point, if you
Oh
say
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Right? What is apaurushaya? That means they are not created by human. If not created by human, where did they come from? Right? So these rishis say, the rishis who uh, proclaimed or said these mantras or these Veds for the first time, they say that when I was sitting in meditative state, I heard these,
Hmm.
and all I have done is I have just reproduced those for
Hmm.
others who cannot hear those sounds in meditative state. So that is exactly how I heard, and that is exactly how I am teaching it or saying it. So
I
that
see.
is how they heard. So they reproduced it in same fashion. That is
Oh,
other reason why there is intonation. Whereas
interesting.
shlokas are written by people, different saints, different rishis, and so on. So they are writers, authors. So that is not something they heard in the universe, so to say.
I see. So shloks are written by the rishis. Who, and did you mention who the mantras are written by?
So mantra also, uh, we don't call it as author or
Mhm.
writers of mantra. They are called drashta rishi. Drashta is the person or the rishi who realized or heard those in the universe and then reproduced it.
I
So
see.
they don't take credit for authoring or writing those mantras, and that is why those mantras are called apaurushaya.
Hmm.
And lot
Interesting.
of suktas, lot of sections in different Ved, they have rishi mentioned which rishi realized this mantra or heard this mantra. But
Hmm.
again, they don't claim that they are authors; they are drashtas. So drashtas and writers or authors are different.
Okay. All right. All right. Then let's move on to your next slide. What do you have next?
Okay, so we covered few aspects.
Basic
Mm,
stuff. Yeah, we covered
right.
some basic stuff, right?
Now, we also talked a little bit about yajna. What is yajna, right? So typically, when we say yajna, we think about some bricks laid out and a fire lit, and we are offering things in that fire. Now, if you look at that with that understanding, how Purusha did yajna to create universe, it will not make sense.
Hmm.
But if we really understand yajna, the real meaning of yajna, it is any process of transformation.
Hmm.
It also has a root of yaja, and yaja
Hmm.
also in today's day-to-day interpretation it means worship. So it is a form of worship or a form of process in which you give, offer one form of certain object, process it, and you get different form of that object.
Hmm.
Now in
Okay.
Purusha Sukta, the concept is Purusha himself performed the yajna. He offered himself as an oblation,
Hmm.
and he himself came out of that oblation.
Hmm.
Now, what is that? Because when the universe was created, what was there before that? Nothing.
Nothing.
Or
Hmm.
we don't know what was there, right? And nobody could really find out. There are some descriptions about the form of energy that existed, and that energy itself is nothing but Purusha. So that itself, that's the only thing that existed. So that energy offered itself, went through the transformation and created different objects.
Hmm.
That is
Okay.
that process of yajna. And again, if we keep it in that context, then everything will make sense how this yajna happened and what happened and how different things got created.
Hmm. Okay.
Now, this is again, I'm sorry, I think when I uploaded these slides, the text got a little bit messed up.
Okay.
Uh, yeah,
As
because
long as
this,
you can read.
yeah, yeah, because these fonts are different fonts for specific words, so they
Okay.
may not get read properly by every software.
Okay.
Okay. I should have created images, then they don't
That's
get.
okay. As I said, that we, if we try to read this, we will not understand anything anyways. So as long as you can read and you can help us understand what it is, we are good.
Yeah. So this second mantra says Purusha evedagam sarvam yat bhutai yaccha bhavyam utamritatva yadanne natirohati. The first line is very simple. It says, whatever we see now, whatever existed in the past, and whatever will exist in future,
Hmm.
everything is nothing but Purusha. And that is kind of understandable because we just saw that before the creation, nothing existed, and Purusha itself went through the process of transformation and manifested itself in different forms. So whatever was before, that was Purusha. Whatever we see, it is again certain manifestation of the Purusha. Whatever will happen tomorrow is again different manifestation of same Purusha. That is the first line. The second line is important. Utam rutatva seshana yadanne natirohati. So it says that this Purusha, it endlessly creates its creation, and it provides required food. Now, this endless or amruta or immortality is a very important aspect here. In typical uh, literature or in typical discussions, we say nothing is immortal, right? Everything that is created will perish. At some point, it will get destroyed. Then, what
Right.
is this immortality? This immortality is what we today understand as law of conservation of mass and energy.
Hmm. Okay.
So it says that whatever you see today, you may not see that today in that form,
But in a
tomorrow in
different
that
form.
form. The
Yeah.
form will keep changing, but the Purusha itself exists, it will continue to exist, and it always existed.
And
If
Purusha is energy, you mentioned, said, right?
right, and energy is again, Ashish ji, we are using that word in our today's context, that we have to have some definition, right, to discuss something.
Okay.
Whereas that form, that Purusha has no definition. So
Okay.
we, for the simplicity of understanding, we use words like energy, power, and so
Okay.
on. Right?
Okay.
Then
Interesting.
it
Hmm.
also says, so that form of conservation is interpreted by Amritatva. So
Hmm.
it will never be destroyed. It will keep on changing its form. Whatever Purusha has created, today you see it as water, then the same water will go and be absorbed in the form of a plant, then it
Hmm.
becomes in the form of food, then we consume it, it goes into our body. After our death, it again goes into the soil, and again
Hmm.
that water goes into environment, and then it comes back.
Right.
Right? I
Right.
mean, just one simple example of water as an example, but that applies to everything.
Okay.
Everything is immortal in that context.
Hmm.
I cannot say I, as a human being, is immortal. No, that doesn't happen. But
Right.
everything that Purusha has created is immortal in that context. It keeps
Okay.
changing its forms. Okay.
Okay.
Then it also says yadanne natirohate. It atirohati means grows, and anna is food. So the Purusha provides food for this universe, so the universe can keep growing.
Hmm.
Now, one important thing, again, modern theories believe there is a theory of expanding universe.
Right.
So modern science believes that the universe is continuously moving and it is expanding. And those aspects are very clearly mentioned here.
Correct.
But what sometimes becomes confusing is, what is this food? The
Hmm.
universe itself is not yet created.
Hmm.
Solar system is not created. Earth is not created. No plants, nothing. So what is this food?
Hmm.
Right? So again, if we try to see different interpretations, people try to interpret it in different way. But this food is again nothing but a substance required for sustenance and growth.
Okay.
What is food for me? Something that I need to sustain and grow.
Survive. Yeah. Hmm.
Right? If you say that, for example, for my car, food is gasoline or petrol,
Fuel. Yeah. Hmm.
right? The fuel. So different objects have different meanings for the word
For the
food.
food. Yeah. Right.
So similarly, for this entire universe, there has to be something, some substance that will cause that growth, that will cause that sustenance, and all the functioning of the universe.
Hmm.
That aspect, that substance, is called food here in this context.
Hmm.
Whereas if you look at modern science, they have coined a term called black energy or dark energy.
Dark energy. Yeah.
So what is dark energy? They don't know. It is just a form of energy that helps universe expand, grow, and causes all the activities within the universe.
Hmm.
And that exactly is the same thing that we talk about as food here in this mantra.
Hmm. Okay.
Right? So again, if we understand in context, we understand what the modern science says, we realize that it is all documented thousands and
Hmm.
thousands of years ago. It is
Right.
just unfortunately, but over the generations, over the years, that real meaning got lost, and we fortunately we sustained or we preserved the text, but the
Okay.
interpretation and meaning kept changing or lost.
So my next question is, did you already understood Sanskrit or did you work on it to make sure that you understand these shloks and months?
Uh, to be honest, I did know very little Sanskrit. I did study Sanskrit in school for a couple of years, but that was very, very basic. Uh, yes, it helped, but uh, had I not learned that in school, would that have been a bottleneck? The answer is no.
Okay.
I extensively relied on Shabdakosh and dictionaries to understand the meanings and different meanings and relate it back to context and so on and so forth.
Okay. So how much time did you have to put on first understanding Sanskrit really well before you get to the Purusha Sukta?
Not much, honestly.
Oh,
And
nice.
again, what happens is it's little tricky question because even if I say I did not understand Sanskrit that much, which is truth, but still you have context. Growing up in India, and most of the
Mm.
Indian languages are based around Sanskrit, evolved from Sanskrit, and you have some context, you have some knowledge of some words and things like that, which is very helpful. So if you have similar understanding, yes, you can. And in fact, the book that I have written, I have made it very, very simple. I'm not expecting anybody to understand any Sanskrit or any knowledge about any scriptures or religious or rituals, nothing.
Okay. So at what point did you decide that I need to write a book? Is that the moment you read Dr. Vartak's book, or did you take some time to figure out exactly what I need to do? How did that thought process work?
So the thought process kind of evolved. So initially, I started reading few things in different contexts. Uh, for some reason, I latched on to Purusha Sukta at some point. Then I started making my own understanding and contemplations. Then I started writing few notes. Then I discussed those notes with some friends, and they said, "Oh, this is interesting. Why don't you properly write it? We'd like to read it." So when I started organizing it, then I thought, okay, if I'm anyway writing it and organizing it properly, might as well publish a book. So
Uh,
then, publishing book is a different ball game altogether.
I
So
was about to ask you, like you did not know everything about how to publish a book. So
absolutely.
how did that journey go? Who helped you on that journey?
Right. So as I started writing with the thought that I let me publish a book, then the process changed quite a bit actually.
I see.
So then I had to write everything more formally, more properly, worry about the flow, the context, the sequence, the language, all those things. And uh, later on, I approached few of the scholars in Indic domain to give me their commentary. And through those discussions, one of the publishers in India, Subu Publications, they came across, and then through them, I published a book in India, and here on Amazon, I published it.
Okay. Okay.
But it is amazing, Ashish ji. I did maybe around 20 revisions before I send the manuscript to the publisher. And
You
after
read
that,
about 20 religions?
20 revisions,
Wow. Okay.
20 iterations. So, yeah, because every time you read, you want to wordsmith it a little bit, you
Oh,
change
yeah, yeah,
something,
yeah. Uh-huh.
those kind of things. And then when
Okay.
I went to publisher, we did seven additional iterations.
Okay.
Uh, so interesting
Yeah, so that's a
process.
lot of work that you have to go through, the
Yeah,
cycle that you have to go through again
right.
and again.
Yeah.
Of course, one reason you already mentioned that the reason you wanted to publish a book is because you were anyways working on it, you were writing it, and that's why you thought, why not have a book? But other than that, what was your intent around who your audience would be? Who will be interested in reading this book and why?
Very good. So, Ashish ji, specifically, I noticed this in US, but similar things happen in India also. We do some basic rituals on day-to-day basis. We do some puja, we do namaskar and things like that. Occasionally, we do Satyanarayan puja and whatever, right? And we don't really know what we are doing. We don't really know why we are doing.
Right.
And we have a lot of social critique. And here, some of the critiques that I heard is, why do you have monkey as your god? Right? When they refer to Hanuman, for
Yeah.
example, why do you have, how
Elephant
can
as your god.
elephant as your god? How can somebody lift the whole mountain? All kinds of things. And then, as I was thinking and understanding and reading and going through details, I realized that none of those things are true. I
Hmm.
did not find any explicit mention saying that Hanuman was a monkey. Rather,
Hmm.
the descriptions clearly lead us to believe that he was a very, very talented human. And then we don't understand it, so we can't explain it to our kids. And then we have to face the criticism. We just, try to manipulate or manage by giving some answer. So,
So I'm getting curious. You mentioned that it is not described. Hanuman is not described like a monkey anywhere. So where did that come from?
so if you read Valmiki Ramayana, and again, many people believe that that is the most authentic version of Ramayana, and rest of the Ramayans that were written, those were more of a bhakti or devotional books.
Hmm.
That is not a history book. History book is only Valmiki Ramayana. So if you read Valmiki Ramayana, the description, and I'll give you a couple of examples. The word used for that entire tribe, I will say, is Vanara. It has never Markata.
Okay.
Okay. So Vanara, was it human? Kind of
Oh,
annotation,
it's
right?
like a kind of a question mark, basically.
Right. And I believe that it was a tribe that dressed like monkeys, or that had little different facial structure with little bigger cheeks, kind of facial structure. The reason it led me to believe that is, if you take a context of very first time when Hanuman and Bhagwan Sri Ram met, Bhagwan Sri Ram goes back to Lakshman and describes Hanuman. And he says, only person who has studied all the Veds and has all the siddhis can talk like this.
Hmm.
Now, if that is the description, how can we imagine a monkey has studied all the Veds
Right.
and can talk in multiple languages to humans?
Absolutely. Hmm.
Right? He first spoke in Sanskrit to Prabhu Ram. Then in the back end, he talked to Sugriv in some local language,
Hmm.
or maybe dialect or some, right? So in that, if we look at and all those things and understand, then it really doesn't make sense to call it a monkey.
Hmm.
How can there is a huge description about how Sugriv clearly described the entire geography of Earth, most of the Earth, not entire, but most of the Earth. He
Hmm.
took India as a central point. You go south, this is what you will see. This is what is there. You go east, this is what is there. West, this is. Then there is a description of all the parts of world where those monkeys have had their families, for lack of better words, right? And
Hmm.
how they invited all of them to come from all over the world to fight the war. Now,
Hmm.
can monkeys really do that? Can monkeys have roots deep enough where they know who their ancestors are, who their relatives are, who are spread across, and they can call them, hey, come and help me?
Hmm.
So all
Right.
those things, if we think logically, we understand that it's not really a monkey.
Hmm. I
Again,
see.
we are digressing from the
No.
topic, but it's very
No, but it is very
interesting.
interesting, right? I don't think we are digressing. I think we are trying to understand the thought process that usually people have around anything. Like creation of the universe is our topic, but um, it made me uh, keep thinking about what you were saying just now on everything that we usually take it for granted and we believe in. We don't question it.
Right,
We just move on with what we have been told.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then in a similar way, there is a description that we interpret, and there are a lot of Hanuman's pictures where he is carrying mountain in his hand and jumping from one place to other place, right? So there is again a clear description that when Hanuman was asked to bring some specific herbs, the description was given how that herb will look like, and one
Right.
of the description was, how this is how the leaves will be and all that, and then it glows in the dark.
Mm.
But when Hanuman reached there, it was daytime, so he could not see anything glowing. So
Right.
instead of getting one herb, he just collected a bunch of things which looked similar, which matched the description, and instead of one herb, he got maybe 20, maybe 100, I don't know. But
Uh,
instead of getting one thing, he got hundreds of things.
yeah.
So then when he reached back, they told him, hey, I asked you to get one thing, you got a whole mountain.
Yeah. And that's why they just put the mountain. Everybody
They
started believing that we
exactly
got
they
the
latched
mountain.
onto that word. Like Ashish, if it, I mean, I tell my kids a lot of times they went to buy some toys, and instead of one toy, they bought like six, seven toys, whatever. I said, what did you do? You bought the whole store here.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
right? And it's very common. We use that kind of terminology in day-to-day
Absolutely. No, you're
language
right.
also. Does that
Absolutely.
really mean she picked up the whole store and brought it home? No,
Yeah, you're right. You're
right?
right.
But
Mm.
we latch on to words without understanding the context and then keep on elaborating on that.
Absolutely. Okay. So you were talking about your intent behind writing this book and who it is focused to. So you were
Right.
right. We just little bit digressed. So let's talk about that now.
Right. Yeah. So again, intent is to uncover the truth, uncover the science, and
Mm,
help all of us understand that these are not just myths.
mm,
There is nothing mythological about this. These are not religious or spiritual scriptures. These are true science books, and we
mm,
need to understand that science so we can build on top of it.
mm. Okay. Okay. So that is where your book is focused. Is basically for people who question about what they have heard in their
Yeah.
tradition, in their culture,
Correct.
for them to understand what actually it means. Basically,
Correct.
right? That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about somebody who might have no clue about Purusha Sukta, or for that matter, any mantra or shloka that we know about?
Mhm.
What would they be interested in book at all?
Yes. So the only criteria is to have that faith and curiosity both, that our
Mm,
scriptures are books
mm,
of knowledge, they are
mm,
not myths, and then I want to understand some of it.
mm.
If that's the
Okay,
only criteria, you don't need to have Sanskrit knowledge or knowledge of any scriptures. At least I'm talking in the context of this book.
okay, okay. Well, we have like about 10 minutes or so left. So one question that I wanted to ask you is, you have started with Purusha Sukta. What are your plans for future? Like, have you already identified what your next book will be, or where you are going to focus and trying to understand a little bit more? Tell us a
Yes,
little bit about that.
yes. Thanks for that question. Yes, I'm in the middle of writing next book, which is on Bhagavad Gita,
Oh, wow.
and again, I'm focusing neither spiritual nor religious nor scientific. I'm
Acha.
exploring practical aspects. How do I apply it in my day-to-day life, and how will it help me live better life?
Okay, very
So
nice.
I'm doing a
Okay.
very practical interpretation, and there on that subject there are some books available, but I'm just trying to explore the bigger
Okay.
picture through entire Bhagavad Gita.
So you will have examples of today's world for each of the
Right,
shlok that you have
right,
in Bhagavad Gita.
right.
And
Or some scenarios where I went to a corporate meeting, and in that meeting what happened, and in some scenarios how I applied Bhagavad Gita principles, or
hmm,
in some cases how I could have applied. Those
hmm.
kind of scenarios are also there.
So now I'm curious, how do you find time? I mean, I know this might be a wrong question because I keep telling people that never say that you don't have time. It's all about priorities.
Right.
It's all about how you define your priorities. So is that true for you as well, that outside of work, this is the only thing that you focus on?
Not really. I mean, yes, I have full-time job. I travel extensively for my job. Now the travel has started again. I have kids, I have family. I have a lot of other hobbies. I'm big into music. I volunteer at Chinmay Mission to do a lot of activities. I teach different classes. I conduct Bhagavad Gita class. I conduct tabla class. I have a music group where I go and or they come to my house, whatever we practice or we have fun. So a lot of these things are going on. But as you rightly said, it is about prioritizing. If I am really passionate about something, I will be able to find time, no matter how many activities are on my plate.
Absolutely. That's exactly how it works. It's all
Yeah,
about defining your priorities. Like एक घंटा कम solo, you will get
right.
that hour, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, so yeah. Well, that's very interesting, Parag, that you mentioned. Even after being so busy, you would make sure that. So, do you have a deadline usually that you put yourself like this is my goal? I need to get this done by that time, or you just go with the flow?
So for the first book, I did not have a deadline. When I thought that I have enough material and enough interpretations, then I set a deadline to publish it.
Okay.
Whereas for my next book, I have a deadline. I wanted to publish it by Gita Jayanti, which is on December 3rd. So let's see how that goes.
Okay. 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 Now, anything else that you think? I mean, was there anything in that slide that you would definitely wanted to share? So, I mean, we have 9 minutes. So, anything missing on that slide that we did not discuss?
I will just mention one thing we did talk about is how Pashu got interpreted as Pashu Bali and things like that. Then there is
Right.
also mention in Purusha Sukta about four so-called Varnas: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. That again becomes a very sweet spot for people to critique. That see, right from Vedic scripture, you are talking about Chaturvarna, and then eventually it gets misused as a caste system and
Right.
we get criticized on that. But
Right.
again, we don't understand that when this Chaturvarna kind of scenario is described in Purusha Sukta, human race is not yet formed.
Mm. That's
So
right.
if the
Mm.
human race is not formed, how can you talk about four categories of humans, right? And then so that is where again that the questioning comes into picture. So this Chaturvarna doesn't symbolize or doesn't indicate four categories, four varnas, and definitely not castes, but
Mm.
it just talks about four qualities that
Mm.
society needs to have.
Mm.
Brahman indicates, again, there is elaboration on that topic, but just to recap in a couple of minutes, Brahman indicates desire for knowledge. For us to survive, for any organism to survive, it will need to have some knowledge.
Mm.
Even the single cellular objects or organisms, they do have knowledge. Why do they
Mm.
move? Why do they move in certain direction? And those things, right? Because
Those
of
are
the
the questions.
knowledge.
Yeah.
They
Right.
acquire that knowledge. Right.
Mm.
The second is Kshatriya. Kshatriya indicates desire for physical strength.
Correct.
Again, for my survival, I need to have some physical strength, not necessarily to fight, but even to survive.
Survive.
I
Yeah.
need to have some strength.
Mm.
Vaishya is ability to acquire and retain wealth.
Mm.
And wealth does not really mean money, but even we eat enough that we will survive till next meal.
Next meal.
Right?
Right.
I eat in the morning, I retain that food in my body, so I can survive for
Right.
another day or another 8 hours or whatever. So even
Mm.
that ability of acquiring and retaining wealth or any substance within me is Vaishya quality. And
Mm.
then doing all other activities,
Mm.
physical activities, moving around, cutting trees, whatever you call it, right? So all
Mm.
those activities are indicated by Shudra. So if you
Okay.
look at it, these four qualities, these four aspects are required by every individual human being as well as any organism for
Mm.
survival. And that is what is described again in the context of universe, whereas it gets misinterpreted and critiqued about caste and race and whatever.
Hmm. I see. Interesting. So, thank you very much, Parag. I mean, I for sure definitely enjoyed this conversation, and I'm pretty sure our audience enjoyed it too. I just wanted to mention to people who are watching this or listening to us uh, that all our programs that we have, they are available on our channel forever. So if there is someone whom you know might be interested in this topic or might be interested in knowing more about this book, please forward our discussion to them so that they understand it better. And I believe, Parag, they can reach out to you as well if they have any questions.
Absolutely. I mean, they can just look up my name on Facebook or YouTube and they will get it. And also, the book looks like this. It is available on Amazon. So you can again search by my name on Amazon and you will get this book.
Absolutely. Anything else before we end the show, Parag?
No, I appreciate you hosting this show, you inviting me, giving me opportunity of what I have uncovered, which hopefully will inspire and help few more people. But again, I'll encourage you to read the book, very, very simple English book, which will give you some different perspectives and help you understand those aspects.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll be more than interested. So more than me, I know that my dad loves something like this. He is completely into trying to understand all the shloks, mantras, because he actually gets into the deep and the detail of everything that he does.
Mhm.
But the only challenge is he likes it in Hindi. So whenever you are coming up with this Purusha Sukta in Hindi, please let me know for sure.
Sure.
I
So
definitely
I
would
have,
need.
yeah, I have already started, and so translation is done now. Again, as I said, the iterative process of refining words and making that more correct grammar, and all those things that's going on. So I
So
would
so
say
when what is the timeline? When will that be available?
that should be available towards early August. So about
Oh,
3 weeks, I'm thinking.
oh, you are very close then.
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. Okay, okay. Well, that's perfect. My dad will be very happy. I can tell you that for sure.
yeah. My
Okay.
Marathi translation is done already. I will send it to publishing next week, and
Oh,
Hindi is kind of halfway done.
very nice. That is all. So, are you yourself doing the translation, or do you have a team that helps you out with that?
No, it's all I'm doing myself. I'm taking help of some linguistic experts to guide me from
Wow,
language perspective. But yeah, I'm doing most of the
very
part
impressive.
myself. Yeah,
Very impressive. Well, thank you very much, Parag. We are extremely honored that you came on our show on Rubaru on Bharat FM
thank you.
and helped us understand basically what all this thing means. Because I, not just me, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of others who had no clue before this conversation uh,
Right.
what Purusha Sukta mean or how to understand how the universe was created, all those things. And no knowledge goes waste, according to me. Even if there was someone watching this who had no clue of what we were talking about, definitely will gain something out of this and will get curious.
Absolutely.
Basically, the
Absolutely.
curiosity will be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me and helping me share my thoughts and my understanding. Hopefully, it
All,
is valuable for everybody.
all right, sir. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
Namaskar.
you.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one of its kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information, and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago, and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sfurti, shakti, and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत एफएम।
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत।